Done.
It's a shame, man. It's a shame. I don't know. I honestly can't actually tell you what the issue is.
Filed a lawsuit against him, and we'll leave it in the hands of the lawyers.
Jake Paul has lost his mind. This is probably the worst mistake of his.
This guy is a fucking animal. Like, he has a video.
Shocking news as Anthony Joshua just lost his mind and sued Jake Paul for $500 million after Jake canceled the fight. Anthony Joshua was ready, focused, and prepared, and Jake still walked away from it. Anyone would be angry in that situation because Anthony Joshua treated this like a real fight, not a joke.
Exactly. It's not on me, innit? I was ready to fight. So yeah, he fucked up.
Jake Paul saying he hasn't even put thought into this and doesn't care is exactly why everything fell apart. He treats a cancel fight like a joke, calling the lawsuit stupid, while bragging about being 5-0. Meanwhile, Anthony Joshua trained for months, and Jake Paul shrugged it off like nothing happened.
Oh, I haven't really even put any thought into it. Don't care. You know, I get sued all the time for stupid shit. I'm 5 and.
Johnny Nelson is looking at this whole situation, and even he feels something deeper is going on. When a veteran like him hints that things will come out eventually, you know Jake Paul hasn't told the full story. Real fighters don't run, but Jake Paul keeps creating excuses.
Something's going on, so maybe it's a sign of things to come, and Eddie might have nudged himself back into favor.
Eddie Hearn is staring right through Jake Paul here because he knows exactly what went wrong. He calls him stubborn because Jake Paul still does not understand what real boxing business looks like. When Eddie says they are not messing around, it shows how serious Anthony Joshua's team is. They prepared properly while Jake Paul played around and destroyed everything that was being built.
And he's stubborn, and he doesn't understand what the business means to us. So, again, this is not something that we do often, but we're not fucking around here because
Jake Paul, admitting he is not ready for a world champion like Anthony Joshua, says everything. He sounds confused, unsure, and completely overwhelmed by the moment. When a man repeats "I do not know" multiple times, he's mentally checked out. Anthony Joshua is on another level, and Jake Paul could not handle the reality of facing a true heavyweight.
I don't know. I haven't thought about that possibility.
I mean, could you envision that someday?
I don't know. I think.
Eddie Hearn makes it clear Jake Paul pulled out of the fight, and hearing him describe it as ludicrous shows how big the damage really is. Netflix invested, MVP invested, and Anthony Joshua committed fully. Yet Jake Paul still walked away. It proves he was never prepared and left everyone else to clean up his mess.
to pull out with all the money that's been spent and for squeaky bum time is not the way forward. And I think Jake Paul's game.
Jake Paul calling Anthony Joshua daddy and talking about staring at his chest just shows how intimidated he really is. Instead of speaking like a fighter, he sounds like someone completely overwhelmed by Anthony Joshua's size. When a man is shocked by height alone, imagine how he would react to real heavyweight power.
Right here. Just looking up at Daddy there and just seeing, how big he is, and just my eyes were kind of going into his nipples and stuff, which I kind of liked. And then basically I was just like, whoa, he's big in that. And then, I can't believe.
Johnny Nelson expressing surprise tells you everything about Jake Paul's character. Even a boxing veteran expected a higher level of professionalism. Yet Jake Paul clearly went off script and made a mess of the situation. Something behind the scenes must have triggered him, because no fighter would just cancel like this without reason. Anthony Joshua, on the other hand, remained focused, disciplined, and fully prepared. This contrast highlights how unready Jake Paul really is, and it exposes the gap between a real world-class heavyweight and someone trying to play in the big leagues without understanding the stakes or the respect the sport demands.
That we don't know about. That really, really rattled him for him to think of and plan doing something like that.
Yeah, because we see things happen in...
Johnny Nelson pointing out that Jake Paul might be cashing out shows just how calculated his decisions are. He is chasing paydays against fighters who do not challenge him seriously, while avoiding a true heavyweight like Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua trained hard, prepared every detail, and treated this like a real championship-level fight, while Jake Paul calculated how to avoid humiliation and a potential knockout. This fight is the ultimate test of courage versus fear, and Jake Paul's hesitation shows he values money over reputation. If he had stepped in, the result would expose the gap between an influencer and a real boxing champion.
Himself might be cashing out because the big purses that he's pulling, fighting these has just maybe, this might be his last fight, getting in there with Anthony Joshua and getting knocked.
Anthony Joshua calling Jake Paul toxic is a bold truth about his personality and approach. A man like Anthony Joshua sees past the theatrics and knows that Jake Paul's attitude is the real problem. Toxicity, arrogance, and lack of discipline define Jake Paul. And Anthony Joshua is right in saying he needs humbling. This is more than a fight. It is a lesson for someone who thinks fame equals skill. Anthony Joshua is ready to teach that lesson. Unlike Jake Paul, he has the experience, power, and mindset of a world champion. The psychological advantage is already in Anthony Joshua's corner.
Disease, I feel like he's toxic. I feel like you can put any top heavyweight in the world up here and he'll probably say the same thing about them all. So it's just him as a person, and then he just needs a beat down, needs help.
Conor Benn acknowledging Anthony Joshua as a hero of British boxing reinforces the reality of this matchup. Anthony Joshua has fought the best, achieved everything in the sport, and earned respect from peers. Jake Paul stepping into the ring against him is not bravery. It is naive at best. Anthony Joshua's work ethic and power make him a nightmare for anyone underestimating him. Conor Benn's recognition of Anthony Joshua's massive punching power is a warning. This fight was never equal from the start. Jake Paul may have had a following online, but in the ring, Anthony Joshua dominates with skill, size, and experience.
He's a grafter, he works hard, he ain't got to do it. He's taking on a hero of British boxing. He's the guy who's done it all, a massive puncher. You got to take your hat off to him, man.
Duke McKenzie hits the nail on the head with this analysis. Anthony Joshua is a trained world-class athlete who would never underestimate an opponent. Yet, he would see Jake Paul for what he is, a wannabe fighter. Jake Paul has no real experience at this level and would be far too easy to hit for someone with Anthony Joshua's timing, accuracy, and power. This is the difference between a man who has dedicated his life to boxing and someone who has built fame online. Anthony Joshua is methodical, disciplined, and dangerous, while Jake Paul is out of his depth.
I don't think Anthony Joshua would take Jake Paul lightly any way, shape or form, and he'd be so easy to hit. You're talking about a trained athlete against
Johnny Nelson calling for an inquiry shows how serious this situation is. The fact that even insiders are surprised by Jake Paul's actions highlights the chaos he created. Anthony Joshua stayed ready, focused, and professional, while Jake Paul's decision to pull out exposed his fear and lack of commitment. This was a potential career-defining moment for Jake Paul, and instead, he chose to back away. Anthony Joshua's reputation grows while Jake Paul is left scrambling to justify himself, revealing the huge gap in seriousness and dedication between the two fighters.
Unfortunately, there is going to be there needs to be an inquiry straight after this. Why, what? But that's what I'm hearing. The news is as fresh to me as it is you. I'm quite sure when this goes out, it'll be all over the place anyway.
Chael Sonnen makes it clear that Jake Paul's issues began long before facing Anthony Joshua. Running into questionable decisions and controversy exposed how fragile his confidence is. He relies on viral moments and easy opponents to maintain hype. Anthony Joshua, by contrast, has faced real pressure, real champions, and remains calm under stress. The moment Jake Paul realized he could be exposed by a true heavyweight, the fight was essentially over in his mind. Anthony Joshua thrives where Jake Paul falters. This statement reinforces that Jake Paul is out of his depth both mentally and physically.
Problem that Paul ran into is when Feldman turned in a ridiculous decision, which is where Paul should have left it.
David Hay, putting numbers on it, emphasizes just how much of a mismatch this would be. Jake Paul is nowhere near Anthony Joshua's size, strength, or skill. When two men of such different calibers stand next to each other, the gap is obvious. Anthony Joshua is a fully developed heavyweight with speed, technique, and knockout power. Jake Paul is a social media fighter with some skill, but no real chance against someone of Anthony Joshua's level. This is a clear example of how appearances can be deceiving, but reality always wins inside the ring.
Jake Paul can come 15-20% in regards to Anthony Joshua. He's a completely different specimen. Look, you'll see what it looks like when they stand next to each other.
Frank Warren nails it when he compares this to a car crash, because that's exactly how this situation looks from the outside. Jake Paul stepping up against Anthony Joshua is pure spectacle driven by curiosity, not skill. Fans will tune in, not expecting a fair fight, but expecting to see a disaster unfold. Anthony Joshua is a complete heavyweight, technically flawless, powerful, and mentally unshakable, while Jake Paul thrives on hype and social media theatrics. There is no way he can compete at this level. The comparison to a car crash is perfect because everyone knows something bad is coming, and Anthony Joshua is the one controlling the outcome.
Can he do it or not? This is a car crash, and people will watch it because that's what people do at car crashes. That's what.
Derek Chisora is brutally honest, and he hits the heart of the matter. Jake Paul does not have the power, the skill, or the endurance to challenge Anthony Joshua. Any notion of him knocking Anthony Joshua out is laughable. Derek paints a vivid picture of what would likely happen, and it is not pretty for Jake Paul. This fight, if it ever happened, would be a one-sided showcase of Anthony Joshua's dominance. Jake Paul might create hype online, but inside the ring, he is completely outmatched. Anthony Joshua's experience, preparation, and raw power would leave Jake Paul overwhelmed. And the reality is, he would probably end up in an ambulance, humiliated and exposed to the world.
Whatever happened to be exciting.
Does he have the power to knock out Joshua?
No, he hasn't got the power to knock out Joshua.
How does that fight end?
Jake Paul going in an ambulance, bro.
The stakes could not be higher, as Anthony Joshua has officially sued Jake Paul for canceling the fight and demanding $500 million. Shows just how serious this is. Anthony Joshua has trained relentlessly, focused every ounce of energy on this showdown, while Jake Paul has repeatedly shown confusion, fear, and a complete lack of preparation. If Anthony Joshua wins this legal battle or eventually faces Jake Paul in the ring, he will prove once again why he is a true heavyweight champion, whose skill, power, and mental toughness are unmatched. On the other hand, if Jake Paul somehow manages to shock the world, it would be the biggest upset in modern boxing history. But everything we have seen suggests he is nowhere near ready for a true champion. Anthony Joshua is hungry, disciplined, and unstoppable, while Jake Paul seems out of his depth. Are you backing Anthony Joshua, or is Jake Paul pulling the upset? Drop your thoughts below and join the debate.